This lesson will be very special. I would like to discuss a secret during the first part of our lesson called Yichudim, or unifications. Unifications are one of the highest and most profound forms of Kabbalistic workings that exist. The secret of unifications is so mysterious and secretive that very little is known about them. But there are various places in which the secret of unifications, or Yichudim, are mentioned. So I'll be quoting from a Sepher today and reading to you a little bit about Yichudim. So the word Yichud means to unite or unify. It's very similar to the word Echad, one, which implies unified whole. The numerical value of Yichud, Yud, Chet, Dalet, is 22. And it hints to the idea of the unification of the 22 letters. And this is in alignment with what is written, "The earth is filled with His glory." The word kavod, or glory, has a numerical value of 32. It hints to us the 22 letters and the 10 sefirot, which are the essence and makeup of all of existence. So it says here, Rav Abner relates a specific account. A sage once came to one of the meditators, mitbodedim, and asked that he be accepted into their society. To give a little bit of context, there are 3 schools in Kabbalah. The first school is Ma'aseh Bereshis, where one comes to a mastery of the theological components behind the workings of creation, by which the word Ma'aseh Bereshis relates. Those who obtain a mastery over Ma'aseh Bereshis are called Hachamim, wise ones, rooted from the word Chokhmah, meaning wisdom. The second school is called Ma'aseh Merkava, the workings of the chariot. It is precisely in this school, at the very apex of this school, that those meditators, those sublime, illuminated ones, capable of Yichudim, unifications, preside. The account is describing a Hachamim, a sage, a wise one, who has obtained a mastery over the theological components of Ma'aseh Bereshis, and is now seeking entry into the second school. A sage once came to one of the meditators, mitbodedim, and asked that he be accepted into their society. The other replied, "My son, blessed are you to God. Your intentions are good, but tell me, have you attained stoicism or not?" The sage said, "Master, explain your words." The meditator said, "If one man is praising you and another man is insulting you, are the two equal in your eyes or not?" He replied, "No, my master. I have pleasure from the one who praises me, and pain from the one who degrades me. But I do not take revenge or bear a grudge." The other said, "Go in peace, my son. You have not attained stoicism. You have not reached a level where your soul does not feel the praise of one who honors you, nor the degradation of one who insults you. You are not prepared for your thoughts to be bound on high. That you should come and meditate, hitboded. Go and increase the humbleness of your heart and learn to treat everything equally until you have become stoic. Only then will you be able to meditate." This was a secret Sepher called The Light of the Eyes, or Chaim. One who is worthy to reach the level of meditation, hitboredut, has peace in his life. To reach this level, one must bind himself to 3 traits and keep himself from their opposite. He will then have peace in this world and certainly in the next. These are the 3 traits. One must rejoice in his portion. He must love meditation, and he must flee from position and honor. This involves the subjugation of the heart. One must rejoice in his portion. Our sages say, Y.I.R.A.H, blessed, sometimes translated as happy, but more properly blessed, is he who is happy with his portion, whether it be a little or a lot. This exemplifies the secret of gratitude, the answer to all of suffering. Gratitude for your portion, whether it's a little or it's a lot. And most importantly of all, gratitude for the struggle. Rabbi Isaac of Akko writes in the name of Rabbi Moshe, a disciple of Rabbi Yosef Chikatilla, the author of the Gates of Light. If a person's heart impels him to rectify his traits, perfecting his personality and deeds, he should pursue humility to the ultimate degree. He should be insulted, but not insult. Hear himself scorned, but not respond. The divine presence will then immediately rest on him, and he will not have to learn from any mortal being. For the Spirit of God will teach him. Elsewhere, Rabbi Isaac of Akko writes, "We found this in the book of the Kabbalists who are worthy of the way of truth. One of the great rectifications for one who wishes to know God is that he should be among those who are insulted, but does not insult. This should even be true with regard to people whom he is not afraid, and before whom he has no shame, such as his wife and children. Even if members of his household insult him, he should not answer, except to correct their ways. But inwardly, he should feel no anger, but his heart should always be joyful, attached to God, no matter what happens." Recently, I was asked a question regarding a solution to suffering, and I said the greatest of all things that a person could have is gratitude. That a person could be wise without gratitude, but every person with gratitude is wise. He could be poor without gratitude, but no person with gratitude is poor. He could suffer without gratitude, but no person with gratitude suffers. Pain is an inevitability of life. Suffering is not. Gratitude is the key and solution to this. Gratitude in everything. So, it is written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, who lived 1488 to 1575. Following. My angelic master taught me this. Do not worry about anything in the world other than that which will influence your worship of God. With regard to all worldly things, everything should be the same as its opposite. This is the mystery of the words of the sage, who asks an initiate, who wished to involve himself in unifications, Yehudim, have you attained Stoicism? If a person does not see that all good in the physical world is exactly the same as its evil, it is impossible for him to unify all things. This is rooted in the secret of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. that tree divides creation. It says of one thing, this is the knowledge of good, and of another thing, this is the knowledge of evil. The Baal Shem Tov, 1698 to 1760, writes the following: I have been stoic, God is before me at all times, Tehillim 16:8. It says, I have quieted my soul. The quieting of the soul refers to the influences of the soul. Being quiet means silencing the influences. God is before me at all times. This denotes a level of stoicism with regard to all that befalls a person. Whether people insult him or praise him, it should all be equal. The same is true of eating, whether he eats sweetmeats or gall. It should all be equal to him. In this manner, one can dispel the evil urge, the Yetzirah, completely. It is told that one of the Hasidim was once asked, what was the happiest occasion in your life? He told the following story. I was once traveling on a ship, along with merchants carrying costly goods. I wished to meditate, on my Creator, and I went down into the bowels of the ship, lying there in the lowest place. The young son of one of the merchants stood himself over me, insulting me and spitting in my face. He then uncovered himself and urinated on me. I was astounded at his brazenness. But as God lives, my soul was not downcast as a result of this. After he left, I was exceedingly happy, realizing that my soul had reached a level of true humility. I realized that through this trait, one can walk among the ones who stand. This trait dominated me so much that I felt absolutely nothing whatsoever. Rabbi Eliyahu Davidus, writing in the 16th century. Those are very profound insights into the nature of Yehudim and the prerequisites that are required in order to enact the process of unifications. It could most closely be related with ascension practices, or a type of theurgic working, where the root of the word theurgy, being theo, means God, as in the word theology, the study of God or religions. The idea is unifying consciousness with God. God is reality. This is alluded to in the verse of which it is written, what can I witness to you, and what can I liken to you? However, in Hebrew, there are no questions. These are statements. And the statement is identified in the following pasuk. I call heaven and earth to bear witness against you this day. So we find that heaven and earth are called witness. Therefore, what can I witness to you means the earth. What can I liken to you means the earth. The earth means existence. Because existence is the actualization of potential. God's will is potential. Existence is its actualization. There is no higher realization or witness and likeness to God than to see actualization. For this world, reality, is the actualization of God's will or potential. Based off of these ideas, I would like to share with you a glimpse of some of the things I've written over the years and some of the Sephers that I've compiled. I've realized over the years that seldom do I read from my own works. A lot of the time I'll quote the words of the sages and other books written by the sages, but I'll make an exception here. So I'd like to begin by citing Likkutei Yirah. This was the 9th Sepher that was compiled. It's an amalgamation of many different secrets, laying down a pathway that is practical and accessible to a person who has zero Kabbalah or years of Kabbalah. It makes the inaccessible accessible. It deals with the theurgic practices of ascension, the ideas behind it, as well as the theological framework from which it is founded upon. The opening page says, Zot Torah Chola. This is the Torah of the burnt offering. The term burnt offering in Hebrew also means ascension. The term Zot, this, has other esoteric interpretations, dealing with the Shekhinah, the Sephiras called Malchus, in which Zot is attributed to. An example, by this will they enter, by Zot will they enter, etc. Thus, the book could quite literally be read as, this is the Torah of the burnt offering. But here it is, this is the Torah of ascension. After a profound opening dealing with the secrets of God's glory, revealing the mother letters and how reality is shaped around these mother letters, which can be seen in all of existence and all of creation, and calling for world peace. It opens on page 21 with the following. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 26. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. For the eyes of the mind are lifted up from their preoccupation with earthly things, and from their being filled with the impression of material things. And they are so exalted that they peer beyond the created order and arrive at the sheer contemplation of God, and at conversing with him reverently and suitably as he listens. How would things so great fail to profit those eyes that gaze at the glory of God with unveiled face, and that are being changed into his likeness from glory to glory? For when they partake of some divine and intelligible radiance. For these material things that one occupies themselves will pass away. Isaiah 51:6. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look on the earth beneath. For the heavens will vanish away like smoke, the earth will perish like a garment, and those who dwell in it will die in like manner. But my salvation will be forever, and my righteousness will not be abolished. The divine mystery of the chariot, Y.I.R.A.H, will now explain the method of ascension. The root of the word Y.I.R.A.H is Rechav, which denotes to ride. However, the word also means to graft or grafting. Thus one grafts through a combination of letters, partsufim, and divine names, ascending from glory to glory, into that place beyond all created order, until one finds themselves before the great darkness, from which the glory of God is made known. It is written regarding this, Exodus chapter 20, verse 21. So the people stood afar off, but Moshe drew near the thick darkness where God was. The people are the world and material things, and as one ascends the mountain, glory by glory, they separate from that which is mundane and material, shedding mortality, and ascends through the mystery of all created orders, and ascending past these things unto the arrival of that great darkness, the secret of secrets, from which the glory of God is made known. He made darkness his secret place. His canopy around him was dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. Tehillim, Psalms 18:11. Lift your eyes to heaven, beholding that which is of the created orders above. Look upon the earth beneath, beholding that which is of the created orders below. Ascending with the divine chariot, beholding the eyes to the orders of that which is above and that which is below, uniting and grafting these things together as the divine chariot ascends from glory to glory. And from this grafting, one causes the heaven and the earth to pass away. Through the unity of these two things, the illusion of separation vanishes like vapor. And the material, as the earth perishes as a garment, for the material and immaterial become no more. As one ascends from glory to glory, arriving at the divine union of his bridal chamber, by which the former things have passed away, and a new heaven and a new earth are formed, not from material and corruptible things, but incorruptible things. Isaiah 65:17. See, I will create new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. Grafting, harachava, one letter to another, one world to another, one divine name to another. Each combination from the merkava combines the power of the divine names, the sephirot, and the letters. When these are grafted to an individual, they direct him, forming every possible permutation, because their essence is sealed within these permutations. Every key of wisdom is given over to the individual who gazes, sees, and understands. When an individual looks into these permutations in a proper manner, he can see all of creation. This is likened to a person who looks into a glass mirror. He sees both his own face and the faces of all those who pass by. When the power of the influx begins to manifest and reveal itself to one gazing into the mirror, the letters in sephirot begin to appear before him like lightning flashes. Regarding this, it is written, Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 14. The chariot ran and returned like a vision of lightning. The Sepher Yirah states, 10 sephiros of nothingness. Their vision is like a flash of lightning. Like flashes of lightning, the letters, partsufim, worlds, and divine names flash before the eyes as one ascends from glory to glory. The living creatures are the forms which behold the glory of the light. Like a ladder that ascends upwards, a ladder of letters, a ladder of Sephirot, a ladder of Partsufim, a ladder of worlds. It was written of this tree producing fruit, containing seed, containing tree. These then become united in the secret of his glory. And it was stated, Vayet Hanan, verse 65, the lilies are a mystery, the Shoshanim. When these body parts are connected together so as to be all one by means of one meditation, according to the secret of the offering, the Holy One, blessed be He, is adorned with a crown of fine gold, so as to be adorned with all His honor. This is the meaning behind the word lilies, which are the secret of all the body parts, above and below. The secret of that gold is that it is a crown that is adorned and rises from among them. There is everything in them, in the lilies. So I speak to the blind, and you, having yourselves been blind from birth, cannot comprehend any color. So too, you who are spiritually blind, cannot grasp the brilliant spectrum of the spiritual worlds, and certainly cannot fathom to grasp those eternal things, being yourself perishable, having been sustained by perishable things, and having hoarded for yourself perishable things. See by the very nature of your existence perishable things. One who reaches the highest level cannot reveal it to anyone. All he can do is give over the keys so that the enlightened individual can open the gates which are sealed to exclude the unworthy. And for you, the blind ones reading, such things, even if you make use of such techniques, will not attain that most supernal thing, and because of this, you will be cut off. Many great men and sages have stumbled and fell, were trapped and snared, because they exceeded the bounds of their knowledge. Their goal of Keter caused them to be cut off, Keret. The sage Abulafia writes, God gave us the Torah, teaching us the way of permutations and the steps of the ladder involving the mystery of letters. Without such information, it is impossible to reach the level of knowing God. For the nature of God, whose being is that most high source of all things, whose nature is to accept the lower things, having He Himself created all things perishable and imperishable, made His glory known. He did so through a certain poor one. The nature of lower things is to reject the lower things. Therefore, when the highest of all things came garbed in the lowest of all things, He was rejected. And that one who ascended glory to glory brought down light of the eternal. His clouds of gloom and sorrow, which surround Him, and from which so many have fallen, parted that light, which is that very life of all things, come into the world. 10 Sephiros of nothingness, close your mouth, that it not speak of them, and your heart, that it not think. And if your heart runs, return it to its place. It is thus written, the chariot ran and returned. Regarding this, a covenant has been made. You already know that Isaiah said, "Declare the letters backwards. Then we will know that you are gods, that you can do good and evil, and we will meditate and see together." Isaiah 41:23. He also said, Isaiah 45:11, "Ask me of letters, and command me over my sons, and the works of my hands." And behold also, Isaiah 44:7, "Tell them of the letters that will come." Now regarding these things, when you pray and study, let my words not forsake you. With every word and expression that leaves your lips, have in mind to bring about a unification. Every single letter contains universes, souls, and godliness. And as they ascend, one becomes bound to the other, and they become unified. The letters then become unified to form a word. They are then actually unified with the divine essence, and in all these aspects, your soul is included with them. All universes are then unified as one, as his glory is revealed. As it is written, Yirat Hashem Reishis Chochmah, that the awe of God is the beginning of wisdom. Many profound mysteries and insights are concealed within those few pages. For the discerning, the enlightened, and the learned, they will find the system in its entirety presented. It describes the true reality and the workings of the chariot, the Merkabah, as a series of graftings, grafting from glory to glory, uniting from glory to glory. Letters, sephirot, names, and worlds. And as one engages in this practice of unifications, of grafting, they ride the chariot, Merkabah, who's rooted in the word grafting, and the soul becomes bound in that grafting, and the chariot ascends from heaven to heaven, from glory to glory, until one attains the point of all created orders, to ascend past that place of all created orders, and enter into the thick darkness, where the glory of God is revealed. There are many things that can be described, but there is also many gates that one must understand first regarding the nature of qualifying yourself for the practices of the Yehudim, the practices of the unifications that were described. One of them, of course, is the serpent, that ever-changing sword, which guards and turns every which way to keep one away from the tree of life. I'd like to use the second half of my time with you all today to open up and reveal these secrets. This Sepher is designed in a series of gates, which brings one from the lowest level to the highest level, explaining each of the various Partsufim as you come into interaction with them, giving their keys and unlocking the secrets in the verses in which they're attributed to. We will see here two people speaking. We will also notice that there are the lower 7 Sephirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchut. Above them, you will also notice that there are 2 7-headed serpents. You will see that both these Sephirot and these serpents are above the heads of 2 individuals having a conversation. You will also notice the 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Starting on page 49. Yetzirah, we learned in Gate 3, is comprised of 6 Sephirot, and now we will discuss why it also includes Malkut as a 7th in the secret of the verse, Proverbs, chapter 6, verse 16. Hine, behold, there are 6 Yud-Ke, Vav-Ke, hates, and 7 that are idols. I will now declare these 7 idols, and in doing so, we will become aware of the 7 aspects of Yetzirah, which are expressed by 6. Our sages said of these 7 idols, quoting Tractate Gittin 88a, Israel was not exiled until the 7 royal houses had worshipped idolatry. These are the 7 houses of idolatry. Chesed, our spirit form. Gevurah, our desire form. Tiferet, our holy form. Netzach, our soul form. Hod, our emotion form. Yisod, our mental form. Malchus, our physical form. Thus, the world of Yetzirah is called formation, in that these forms, as a collective, move upon and form a Siyah, which is called reality, as discussed in Gate 1. We will now identify and discuss these forms, each in depth, and learn about these vessels and the dimensions of Yetzirah. Here's a diagram from a very large canvas that was compiled many years ago in order to express the secret of these forms, the secret of this chariot. Gate 5. The dimensions of the chariot. The 7 forms of Yetzirah are called the chariot, Merkavah, as in the verse Exodus, chapter 14, verse 7. He took 600 of the best chariots. The 600 chariots are thus divided. Each of the forms personify a Sephiros of Yetzirah, in example 6. And each of these Sephiros contain 10 sub-Sephirot within themselves, which are the form and image of a man. It is also known 10 Sephiros create a tree, and it is written in Psalms 1, man is a tree. An example, the 10 Sephirot form the image of a human body, which is a tree. Now these 6 Sephiros of Yetzirah, having 10, which are the image of these forms, total 60. As it is written, Song of Songs, chapter 3, verse 7, behold Solomon's bed surrounded by 60 mighty men. And these 60 in turn have 10 Sephirot, Kether to Malkut, totaling 600. And so it was written, he took 600 of the best chariots. These 6 forms act upon the 7th, the physical body, the physical form, which are collectively called the chariot, in that the true individual, which is a spark of the endless existence, from the Ein Sof, from above Yetzirah, expresses itself through these 7 forms in Yetzirah. As a rider is not his chariot, so too is the individual not any of these forms themselves. Rather, the individual expresses themselves through these vessels that are the chariot, which forms Yetzirah. And reality, Asiya. Chesed, our spirit form. We have a spirit. We are not our spirit. Gevurah, our desire form. We have desires. We are not our desires. Tiferet, holy form. We have a holy form, a higher self. We are not our higher self. Netzach, soul form. We have a soul. We are not our soul. Hod, emotion form. We have emotions. We are not our emotions. Yisod, mental form. We have a mind. We are not our mind. Malkut, physical form. We have a body. We are not our body. You are the choice between these forms and action, which is Yetzirah, forms, and Asiya, action. Thus, aside from physical speech, which is Asiya, we see also that communication occurs through these 6 additional forms, which are Yetzirah, meaning we communicate through desires and spirit, through our higher selves and our soul, through our emotions and our mind. Thus, everyone exists within Asiya, meaning reality, containing within them their own world of Yetzirah, formation, which is each individual's chariot of expression. Here you will see a diagram of 2 people speaking with each other, and above them both, the collective chariot, or some of their forms. Y.I.R.A.H, Gate 6, the evil inclination and the good inclination. We will now lay out the order and placements of Yetzirah. It has been explained that there exists a front and a back to each Sephirot. With this we can understand there are a front, or good, and a back, or evil, form to each. Collectively they are called the Yetzer Tov, good inclination, and the Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. And here the term Yetzer is an allusion to the world of Yetzirah, from which they originate. Thus, attached to these vessels, which are the forms, are 2 inclinations. Thus, the evil inclination containing 6 evil forms, and the good inclination containing 6 holy forms, act upon the 7th being the physical form. Collectively, these are 13 aspects of Malkut, called the rose, by which the Zohar opens in Book 1 and states, there is a rose. Malkut, an example, the physical form. Among the thorns, Asiya, an example, reality, has 13 qualities of judgment and mercy. An example, 6 forms of judgment, hinting to the evil inclination, and 6 forms of judgment, hinting of mercy, hinting to the good inclination. Thus Malkut, the body, is called the assembly of Israel, in that it contains within it 12 aspects, which are 6 from the evil inclination and 6 from the good inclination. With this you can understand the secret of the verse, gather yourself, O Israel, and the matter of the harlot spoken of in the book of Judges. The Shekhinah, an example of the divine dwelling, body being divided into 12 parts, and then divided into 12 tribes, as is mentioned in the book of Judges. Gate 7, the 70 nations, Sha'ar-Zain. The 70 nations originate themselves through the lineages of the sons of Noah. There is a large genealogy for Shem, Chem, and Japheth. This genealogy contains exactly 70 listings from which our sages originated that there are 70 nations. Thus, one must understand that the term nations refers to 70 in every place that it is used. Now we will expound precisely what it means when the term goyim, or nations, is used. With what has been revealed in the previous gates, we can understand the matter of who the 70 nations are. These 70 nations refer to these 7 forms and their 10 sephirot, and the nations are all who operate their lives through these forms as a governing factor. Meaning that people who personify reality, for example through chesed, reality becomes defined by one's spiritual attainment. Or gevura, their desire body, reality becomes defined by one's desires. And emotives, as a person's worth is determined by an agenda of one's desire. We have desires and we are not our desires. We are the choice that acts upon desire. Tiferet, our holy form. Reality becomes defined by one's higher self, and the value and quality of the environment and things around you become determined by one's perceived attainment. We have a higher self, but we are not our higher self. We are the choice that acts upon the higher self. Netzach, our soul form. Reality becomes defined by one's soul form, and the conditions of reality are determined by the overall condition of the soul within the body. An example, overall states of joy or sorrow, health or decay. We have a soul. We are not our soul. We are the choice that acts upon the soul. Hod, our emotion form. Reality becomes defined by one's emotions. Both quality and form become filtered through the lens of the emotion form, and reality becomes distorted in accordance with the conditional state of the emotional form. We have emotions. We are not our emotions. We are the choice that acts upon emotion. Yisod, mental form. Reality becomes defined by one's thoughts. Both quality and form become filtered through the thoughts of the mind, and reality becomes distorted according to the perception of the mental form. We have a mind, we are not the mind. We are the choice that acts upon the mind. Malchut, physical form. Reality becomes defined by the physical comforts and conditions of the body, by which projects and distorts this perception into and onto reality, by which form and experience become altered. We have a body, we are not the body. We are the choice that acts upon the body. Thus we see the nations are those who operate the lens of reality through the perception of these forms. Of this, we see perceptions of good and evil amongst these forms. As you will see later in the gates, the true mysteries are not in need of these lower perceptions and are completely divorced and independent of them. Now, I'll explain another profound matter. The next chapter gives a discourse on the 7 eyes of the Lord, but we will move to gate 9 and discuss the serpent born from filth. What exactly is the serpent? With this, you may better understand the tikkun that was presented earlier. We may see how each of the lower 7 sephirot contain all 10 sephirot within inside of them. They, in turn, take the form of the human body. Gate 9. The serpent, born from filth. In Book 1 and 2 of the Zohar, an example, Bereshis, Aleph, and Beis, a variety of passages are presented of which describe the serpent as emerging from the Zoma, or filth. I will now explain the mystery of this snake in terms of its birth, purpose, and its existence. The filth, or dross, the serpent is birthed from, is our collective sum of experiences. The dross, or filth, and example experiences collectively build on the respective form, an example hod, our emotion form, and through this collection of experiences, birth perspective. This perspective, as time progresses and more experiences are added, personify the serpent. Our sages stated that this serpent has 7 heads. This is because the 7 forms accumulatively collect the sum of experiences. The dross, as time progresses, causes this collective sum of experience to grow in capacity. Over time, it develops an identity of its own. An example, the voice within your mind. This voice, often associated with the higher self, in many places, is in reality the serpent. An example, the collective sum of experiences personified as a persona. This serpent then speaks to you. This is the power of the serpent, as it was stated in Genesis, and it was explained that the serpent spoke to the woman. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Y.I.R.A.H, and he spoke to the woman. It is also explained in the beginning of the same verse, and the serpent was craftier than all the beasts of the field. We will now explain why he was craftier than all the beasts of the field. It is written, 7 days under the mother, and on the 8th day a fire offering to Hashem. Leviticus chapter 22, verse 27. When an ox, a sheep, or a goat is born, it must remain under its mother for 7 days. On the 8th day, it will be acceptable as a fire offering to Hashem. Commentary. Bina here is called the mother, which is the 8th sephirot, above the lower 7, and is also called a fire offering to Hashem. The lower 7 are thus called animals. An example, 7 days under the mother, Bina, the 8th sephirot. Regarding this, it is written, on the 8th day, the males will be circumcised. The ox refers to Gevurah, the sheep to Chesed, and the ram to Tiferes, which are under the mother. An example, Bina, the 8th sephirot, called mother. Thus, we understand that as time progresses onward, dross, an example, collective sums of experiences, build upon the vessels, an example, the 7 forms in Yetzirah, and from this collective dross, an example, filth, the serpent is formed, Yetzer, with its 7 heads. Here is a tikkun describing an individual, and above him are the 7 forms revealed by the spheros of Yetzirah, and above this is a 7-headed serpent, the collective sum of experiences birthed from the Zoma, the dross. We find regarding the serpent that it is craftier than the beasts. An example, it is craftier than the 7 forms called beasts. in that it is the collective totality of their dross, or sums of experiences. This collective totality of experiences convinces the individual that the serpent is the individual itself. An example, your thoughts are you, and your emotions are you, as opposed to your choice, by which acts upon thoughts or emotions, etc., that you are subjected to. As time progresses, the serpent, an example, the sums of experiences, first convinces you in that the individual surrenders his choice to impulse. An example, the individual feels an emotion and simply reacts without choice. Later in life, the same serpent then moves to convince you that it is God. The latter parts of a person's life, after being progressed through accumulative masses of the sums of experiences, then moves after convincing its host, an example, the individual, that it is the true identity speaking, an example, the voice of the mind. Later in the life of the individual, he comes to believe that this accumulative, collective sum of experiences, which personified his identity, is now God. An example, the voice in his head is actually God now speaking. First, the serpent, an example, the sum of experiences, personifies the identity. Later, the same serpent, an example, the sum of experiences, personifies God, speaking to them. Y.I.R.A.H, Gate 10, the breeding serpent. We will now explain the nature of the serpent and its procreation process. It was explained in Gate 9 that the serpent is the collective sum of experiences that are built upon the 7 forms expressed in earlier gates. Now we will explain the nature of this serpent. It is written in Book 1 of the Zohar, A, a cloud of sorrow hovers above the heads of the wicked who are being eliminated by the Holy One. As it is written, a man after his desires, demon after demon. Commentary. Sorrow refers to the negative sums of experiences by which form the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And this hovers above the head of the individual in that Yetzirah, an example, the forms and the sums of experiences of the forms reside above the head of the individual, an example, Asiya. Thus our experiences become filtered through the sum of experiences. The current experience then becomes altered by the sum of experiences, and a new experience in the likeness of this filtered sum of experience is birthed, as it were, into existence. Hence it is written later, demon after demon. An example, a negative sum of experience filters a current experience, breeding, as it were, by distorting any given experience through the lens of the sum of experience, by which breeds, as it were, a new negative experience. An example, a demon. Thus the serpent breeds the individual by birthing demon after demon, an example, distorted experience after distorted experience, collectively amassing its own existence over time. As with all things within the Simsum, the restriction, an example, vacancy, the nature is self-centered, a restricted state, and based in self-preservation, a further restricted state. So too we see the serpent breeds experiences to continue its own perceived existence. Like a serpent, it restricts, an example, coils around the individual. Operations by filtering the experience through the lens of the sum of experience, breeding according to its kind. And this is the secret of, so the Egyptians appointed taskmasters over the Israelites to oppress them with forced labor. As a result, they built Pithom and Ramses as storehouses for Pharaoh. Taskmaster, the word Sharai, has a numerical value of the word Tanin, another word meaning serpent. Taskmaster refers to the serpent, who's being appointed over the vessels, in example Israel, to oppress them with forced labor by filtering the current experience through the sum of experiences. This causes the vessels to build the storehouses. Pitom refers to Lilith, and Fe Tav has a numerical value of 480, which is the same value as Lilith. Ramses refers to the evil inclination, and so his name can be read as Merosos, from an evil horse. Again, it was written, Pharaoh mounted his chariots. Here we can see a tikkun. Much more insight can be derived. We can see over the heads of the individuals are the forms, the world of Y.I.R.A.H, the lower seven Sephirot, and above them are the secret of the seven-headed serpent, the collective sum of experiences which have defined their personas. I would like to go into an even deeper level and describe to you more about the nature of this serpent, what it does, and how evil, death, and suffering are brought into the world as a result of it. In order to do this, we will go into another Sepher that was recently released called Tikkunei Yirah. For those of you that are just joining in, the Sepher that I read from is Likkutei Yirah, the Torah of Ascension, and is the 9th Sepher that I wrote. You can find copies of this particular book on Amazon or BookBaby. If you are watching this on YouTube, I will provide a link to obtain a physical copy of it down below. As of a few days ago, another incredible Sepher was compiled called Tikkunei Yirah, the corrections of Y.I.R.A.H. The front and back of it contain the prototypes of two very beautiful paintings that a very special person commissioned of both myself and my wife. To give you some context behind the nature of this particular book, know therefore and understand that many of these teachings were communicated only privately to my wife in a small inner circle. The workings of the chariot are very guarded. They deal with the very deep complexities of the psychological profile of the serpent, navigating and grafting through various states of consciousness, ascending various hekalot, or heavenly palaces, which are the secrets of the states of consciousness within the various forms. I will share with you all a few different aspects regarding the nature of these things. On the creation of heavens. Understand the heavens are Serpent, the forms by which express themselves, surrounding and rooting themselves in Tiferet, the central Sephirot of Serpent. This is the sod of the heart, which is Tiferet, and the sun, whose metal is gold. Regarding this it is written, a furnace for gold. Thus the heart is a furnace, which burns with 7 kinds of fire. These are the lights of the forms that impress themselves upon the heart. These lights then birth angels which rise up from the bestial soul, which is housed in the heart, into the divine soul, which is in the brain. For these lights of the heart, being various influences, arise and become angels, worlds by which they are contemplated upon. And these angels, or words, become by process of thought heavens, or concepts. and birth as it were heavens, by which existence enters. For one then applies focus to these matters which are in truth existence, altering dimensions to a multiverse. These heavens then become filled, mile, by other lights, which are influences in the heart, and varying emotions and desires that ascend into the brain and become words and thought, and ultimately concepts, which are heavens. This process continues until it was said of the birds being the angels according to their kind. For one emotion produces thoughts, which produce concepts, or heavens, in which descend back into the heart and birth, as it were, emotions, or angels, which become more thoughts, which produce more heavens. Therefore, the word angel melach can be read as a messenger and contains the word mile, to fill. For a messenger is a relaying of information, and thus angels are the relaying of information in existence. For this information, the cycles of seasons, the orbits of planets, the glow of the stars, and countless other things are the sort of these angels. And so the seven forms impress upon the heart influences, taking the sum of experiences and filtering the current experience through influence, and these influence which manifest themselves in the furnace of the heart as these various types of fire, then ascend from the heart, and the influence then becomes garbed in a word. The words are various angels and demons, which then ascend into the mind, and they gather together many angels, many words, many demons, many words, and they create different types of heavens and different types of hells, in which a person's existence is then brought into. Now that we've sufficiently described the nature of the forms, the serpent, and the various heavens that they're associated to, we'll discuss very briefly on the types of angels. Know that the word Shemaim, meaning heavens, is formed from two words, and they are Aish, fire, and Mayim, water. For to each of the seven fires there are seven lights of seven forms. There exists within each Partsuf a right and a left column. These are water to the right and fire to the left. Thus, there are emotions that we consider good and others that we consider bad. They enter by means of the heart, which burns by the varying lights that gather here, and from which it is called a furnace. These angels, or messengers, who relay this information or lights to the brain to be garbed in words and concepts, are some compared to fire and others compared to water. However, there are another kind of angel that does not originate from the fire and the water, which is the heavens or forms, but exists through holiness, by which it was written, Melech of Hashem, angel of God. For this kind of angel originates in the center column, which is Yashar, straight, as it is written, all the ways of Hashem are straight, Yashar. This occurs when what rises from the heart is from the root and light of awe, or Y.I.R.A.H. And this light ascends from the center column called straight, forming thoughts and being garbed in words as before. However, the heavens produced from these thoughts draw toward the illimitable, and therefore are not rooted in the lower heavens, but rather the lower heavens, being the innumerable sums of experience, kiss this light, as it were, meaning accept this insight, and it ascends into the illimitable to become a piece of the eternal, which then enters the divine soul, which fills it with da'as, or knowledge, and imprints a state of awareness in existence upon that which is eternal and rooted in that which is eternal. In many places, what was spoken were innumerable angels in heavens, by which one would have been called up into the chamber of inner chambers, of the highest worlds, of which it is written, lifted by the wings of the angels. However, due to the condition in ignorance, which is darkness, existence, as is in this condition, is not currently possible. So I must come and see what it is you see, for you are not yet able to see that in which I see. For the time has not come for you to be in the place I am in. Rather, I speak to you here in this world, the place in which you are in. However, one day existence will awaken, and in an instant they will be called up through innumerable heavens and immeasurable angels before finding themselves before the light and presence of the illimitable. On the nature of the serpent. The serpent is birthed from the Zoma, or collective sums of experiences, on each form. These collective sums of experiences birth a persona, which is a serpent. Now this serpent, being a persona, flies through the heavens, which are the concepts birthed amidst the collective sums of experiences, and many angels, which were words or thoughts, which enclose the light of intentions birthed in the furnace of the heart, by those enveloping lights and influences. Regarding this great serpent which flies in the midst of the heavens, it is written, Leviathan Nachash Barach. For this Leviathan Nachash, who is the great serpent, is flying through Barach, the spirit, the Ruach, the world of Y.I.R.A.H, which is to say, in the Ruach, which refers to the forms, the head letters spell Lavan. For this was the whiteness of the mind, which is Chokhmah. It speaks as it is written, and the serpent said, for its power was in its speech, and these were the numerous angels, which were thoughts produced by the influences of those lights in the heart. These lights were varying in intensity by its degree and produced many types of serpents, whose speeches were a byproduct of numerous angels, which were thoughts that birth countless heavens, which are concepts brought forth from those thoughts and angels. Speech is what directs and commands, thought informs, and concepts. This speech was the collective thoughts personified as an individual's persona, the serpent, expressed as a directed flow. Now I give a warning to all of those before entering into the deeper mysteries. One must pass through the gate of righteousness, which is what was alluded to in the opening of our lesson today. Now amidst the traps of the upper world lay the gate of righteous. This gate is one of the highest traps of the ego. For far beyond the simple consciousness of the bestial soul, who sins and walks in error by means of simple desires and mundane matters of the material, is the ego's sense of self-righteousness, which is the highest perversion of spiritual truth. Thus the ego, the serpent, becomes empowered by sucking on the supernal lights of holiness. It exalts itself by its perception of righteousness. It seeks to be viewed as righteous before the eyes of others, for this births many more angels and many more heavens by which it exists. However, I will speak to you of a great secret that avoids the corruption of their gaze and the crushing of the head of that serpent. Self-righteousness is the serpent's manipulation, in which the individual views themselves as righteous or seeks to be viewed as righteous by others. The endless is rooted in ain, nothing. For the true reality is the ain, meaning nothing. And the dream is that it is something. Therefore the Zohar stated, Yesh Ma'ain, something from nothing. The gate of righteousness opens to the one who is nothing. For validation, which is measurement, and conditions placed upon or by any individual, removes them from ever uniting with the illimitable. For as long as they have measure, they will never attain to that which has no measure. Having sufficiently described the esoteric secrets of the serpent, the creation of heavens, angels, the forms, the interactions, the secret of Pharaoh, and many more different things, I will expound two final things. Although the nature of the serpent has been described as the collective sums of experiences, the persona, we must now move beyond the persona and understand the nature of suffering that is brought into the world as a result of this serpent. How death is brought into the world through this serpent. I was asked, how do I know if my worship is accepted by God? When people stop praising your worship. They responded, how will I know if I am progressing on the path? When you no longer need to know and no longer care to know. For this way is like handling pure fire while soaked in oil. Only the rarest souls, perhaps 1 in 10,000, can traverse it without being completely consumed. Most who attempt fall into either spiritual lawlessness or despair. One asked, when will I attain? When you no longer try to remember or seek to remember, but have become. They asked me on the nature of soulmates. And know your soulmate is the female or the male of your vessel, and the two are one. As it is written, the two shall come together and be as one flesh. Thus any person's true soulmate brings them to the path of the illimitable, and all who are not an individual soulmate leads them to great evil and suffering, ensnaring each other in their own delusions, concepts, and demons, thoughts, by which their persona, serpent, is projected onto each other in order to control and to mold them into what their serpent or persona views them as, not as they are, but as what they seek to control them to be. Thus they don't actually love them. They don't even know them. But rather, they love and know their own demented ideas of them. The version of them existing within their own serpent or persona, this being the highest root of narcissism. For you love them as long as they are a condition met within one's own being conditions set forth by their demons, which are their forms. Then, like Gehinnom and Satan, they emotionally abuse, mentally abuse, and oftentimes physically abuse in order to control and mold that person into their ideal. Thus, the two manipulate and abuse each other in a twisted variant of so-called love, which is in truth great evil. A student asked, what do you expect? I responded, betrayal and suffering. Another said, I love you. I responded, You love what you have taken from me. If I had not done these things, you would have not loved me. One arose and said, Tell us of the evil inclination. The abuse of the evil inclination. The evil inclination is formed from the desire to receive and is empowered by a collective sum of experiences that form the persona or identity of an individual. It has been explained at length how the world of the chariot, personifying the 7 forms called the 7 midot, are 7 vessels, and how these 7 forms, spirit form, desire form, higher self, soul form, emotion form, mental form, and physical form, act as garments for the true identity, which is the spark of the infinite, consciousness of the illimitable, filtering itself through these various lenses of garments by which reality is experienced. It has also been explained at great length how these experiences are recorded as good experiences and bad experiences, forming collective sums of experience by which build upon these vessels as tarnish does on silver. This tarnish is called Zoma, and from the Zoma the serpent or persona is birth, whose power is in speech. It has been explained how the serpent or persona, formed by the collective sums of experiences, then speaks to you via the mental form, and so you hear a voice in your head. For the power of this serpent is its speech, as it is written, the serpent spoke to the woman. An example, the soul or the body. From here it convinces the individual that this voice is the true identity, and so the person slowly surrenders choice to identify with this persona, by which after time convinces the individual expression of consciousness that this persona is the true identity. The person then surrenders his choice and simply acts and reacts from the impulses of the serpent formed by the amalgamation of a collective sum of experiences. After a time, the serpent, having seized control of the individual in that they identify as his persona, then comes to believe that it is God speaking to them. The nature of this persona is evil, and so it is written, the thoughts of a man's heart are evil continually. For the heart is the root of the bestial soul, and the thoughts that arise from the bestial soul are rooted only in animal desire, and to receive and control. The thoughts that arise from this bestial soul empower action, and thus evil is brought into the world by the actions of human beings. The methodology of abuse cycles implemented by the evil inclination. Being rooted in the desire to receive, it perceives only its own perspective as being true, filtering current experiences and other experiences through the lens of their own sums of experiences, or persona. They initiate a cycle of abuse. 1. When presented with the success, accomplishments, or achievements of others, they will actively ignore an accomplishment of another for the explicit purpose of diminishing the value of another person, their achievement and contribution to existence for the explicit purpose of defending subconsciously their own sense of inferiority. This cycle of diminishing the value of the accomplishments of others is an abusive projection of abusive behavioral patterns that, when successful, causes the victim of abuse to feel depressed, depreciated, worthless, and suffer. Thus evil and suffering is brought forth into the world. 2. When something is presented that does not align with the persona of the serpent's perception, they will actively seek to diminish this perspective and align it with their own perceived perspective, filtering the experiences or contributions of others through personal sums of experiences for the sole purpose of molding the perspective of another person to fit their self-identifying beliefs, even in situations that do not call for a challenging of beliefs. An example, someone shares a hobby they enjoy, and the response of the abuser, fueled by the evil inclination, is to respond with backhanded statements. Who cares? You actually enjoy that? Yeah, that's cool, but are just a few small examples in a textbook list of abusive responses. designed to justify the abuser's bias and diminish the value of the victim's sense of happiness and self-worth. 3. The evil inclination, in an attempt to form its own perspective as the only perspective, will actively ignore the contributions of others in any capacity, in order to project a sense of self-perceived dominance of the abuser and inferiority of the victim. The result of this diminishing of self-worth causes emotional and mental trauma. 4. Often the abusers do not recognize themselves as abusers, and when confronted will forge themselves as a victim, for the sole purpose of maintaining moral superiority and diminishment of the victim. The explicit purpose is to form their perceived persona as the only true existence. In the process of doing so, they inflict further emotional and mental abuse to their victim. 5. Often these abusers will remove themselves as a passive, aggressive technique to emotionally and mentally abuse their victim. Without communicating their motives, they intentionally stay vague to prevent their own self-realization that they are abusers, wicked, and horrible individuals. The intention is to make their victim feel distressed and replaceable, diminishing their self-worth and exerting their sick will to control and inflict suffering upon their victim. 6. In order to maintain moral superiority, they will resort to mental and emotional gaslighting, forging things that legitimately call into question their motives to personal insults, and emotionally charged perspective for the explicit purpose of maintaining a perceived sense of moral superiority, allowing their perspective and persona to be the true perspective, and the others to be false. 7. They will actively take from those around them while providing nothing in return. Friendships are formed for the explicit purpose of fulfilling personal benefit, gain, and practical function for the sole purpose of furthering their own sense of perceived self-importance. 8. The value of others are perceived and valued only according to the furtherance of the evil inclinations, persona's sense of importance. That which does not further their own importance is viewed as irrelevant, and that which furthers their own personal sense of importance is given pleasantries, praise, and acknowledgement until the abuser obtains what they need from their victim, and then the victim is left in pursuit of another, by which the cycle repeats. This leaves the victim with emotional and mental trauma. 9. They will actively ignore while simultaneously stalking those they abuse for the explicit purpose of a perceived sense of control, seeing others as characters and pieces to control in their own perceived game of life, and further their own perceived sense of self-importance. 10. Relationships, both platonic and romantic, become cages for the victim to live within the parameters set forth by the abuser, so that the victim will experience abusive aggression and microaggressions, both passive and actively, in order to be molded and controlled into fitting the role and narrative set forth by the abuser. 11. These abusers will actively shower an individual with pleasantries, compliments, and adoration while in their presence, and while they still offer something that allows them the furtherance of their own perceived importance, while behind their back and amongst others will actively participate in diminishing abusive language, designed to humiliate and minimalize the victim, or will stand idly by while they see others diminish and use abusive language against these people, as they subconsciously or consciously agree, and even may see abuse as justified from their own sick perspectives. 12. These types of abusers will find justification for their abusive behaviors by giving the perception that the abuse was warranted, or even just. And when they view others abusing the victim, they will stand by and do nothing, often because the abuse they are witnessing fortifies their own persona's perspective of justification and validation for warranting abuse. 13. Sometimes they will witness abuse, both verbally, mentally, and even physically, of friends, and will oftentimes not put an end to the abuse or seek to stop the abuse out of fear for confrontation. For in the mind of the abuser, public image and the persona's social standing is the central object of perceived social, moral superiority. These types of people claim to care about supposed friends and others alike, but will actively be an accomplice to another person abusing their friends by the cowardice of inaction, contributing to the abuse themselves. 14. Needing to maintain control, they will, in all cases, make themselves a victim, a technique which allows them to be an abuser without acknowledging the fact of their abuse. This allows them to abuse others while justifying their motives through the lens of victimhood. 15. These abusers often operate through Hod, their emotion forms, forging reality, perspective, and even perceived facts through the lens of validating emotional positions. When emotional positions are challenged, these abusers respond by utilizing negative emotions as a weapon, weaponizing anger, hostility, and other aggressions or microaggressions in order to control another via emotional manipulation. 16. Instead of reason and logic, these types of abusers formed by the evil inclination will personalize all interactions in order to filter existence by their will to receive, making even mundane comments or rational, logical statements to be personal attacks by which the abuser responds with emotional volatility. The reason for this response is a result of the interaction being perceived as challenging the position of perceived importance of the abuser and the abuser's emotionally volatile response as an attempt to invalidate or diminish the victim. 17. Logic and reason are viewed as not important or even oppositional by these types of abusers, because anything that does not strengthen their perceived sense of importance and the narrative they have forged for themselves is hostile and must be met with aggression or microaggressions. 18. When utilizing microaggressions, these abusers use suggestive language in order to convey their intentions while still retaining plausible deniability, thus allowing the weaponization of moral high ground if confronted. And in addition to already subjecting the victim to mental and emotional abuse, will then label them as crazy or even aggressors themselves, all in an attempt to not only maintain moral superiority, but also to acquire victimhood as reinforcements to their abuse. 19. These abusers will also use body language to communicate their emotional volatility in order to control the comfort or even perceived safety of others in an attempt to control the behavior or actions of their abuse victim. 20. These types of abusers lack proper communication skills and must utilize microaggressions, aggressions, deceit, manipulation, abuse, and control to communicate what they lack the ability to communicate with others verbally or directly. 21. When these abusers finally do communicate, it is emotionally volatile and filled with challenges to their own perceived identity and persona, utilizing aggression and hostility to argue and fight, resorting to degradation, slander, manipulated perceptions in order to force their positions. 22. When these abusers evolve their communication, they become sociopathic narcissists, and in extreme cases, psychopathic, where they can express extreme criticism and opposition of others in cold, heartless, and blunt manners that reinforce only their perception as being true. They list what you are doing wrong and make for themselves judge and jury. 23. These abusers will at all costs defend their perspective as the only true perspective, manipulating the narrative and drawing others to join their positions to appear to have the socially accepted high ground, spreading gossip and slander and libel to others, so that by the popular opinion justify their abusive behavior and sabotage their victim in any way possible. 24. These types of abusers will often accuse their victim of what they themselves are doing. As discussed previously, they will paint themselves as a victim, turning the victim into an aggressor. In relationships, this is often seen as a cheater who accuses their partner of cheating. This method of abuse is used in order to place the victim within the parameters of perception, giving the illusion of needing to prove themselves or qualify themselves to the parameters set forth by their abuser. 25. In order to control their victims and conformed them to the mold they have placed them in within their persona's worldview, they will actively dismiss any positive traits and focus on anything perceived to be negative. And in support of the abuser's need to diminish the self-worth and value of the victim they perceive as a threat to their own personal sense of importance. 26. These types of abusers constantly place qualifying expectations on their victims, and when the victim has met one of these expectations, they forge for themselves another expectation, constantly invalidating the self-worth or importance of their victim. Most of this being rooted in the attribute of fear. They justify this form of abuse by decrying insecurity, while simultaneously leaving their victim with a sense of replaceability, not being good enough, and under the stress of abandonment, forming emotional and mental trauma. 27. These types of abusers, when confronted, use personal insecurities or past traumas, negative sums of experience, to justify their abuse and invalidate the suffering of the abused victim. 28. Invalidating the suffering of their abuse victim becomes necessary so that the world can still revolve around their narrative, diminishing the victim's suffering by justifying the abuse with their own perceived sufferings in life. 29. These abusers will often present themselves as even being virtuous, upright, or even just. For these attributes validate the abuser's sense of perceived importance. They will view their victim as flawed, damaged, or even evil, as this reinforces perceived superiority and justifies the mental and emotional abuse they inflict upon their victim. 30. These types of abusers invalidate and ignore their own abusive behaviors in order to maintain justification of their actions. They will diminish the suffering of the abuse victim by using their own perceived moral justifications or excuses by comparison to ensure the only narrative that is correct is the abuser's. 31. The abuser will often create a narrative and spread the narrative either directly or indirectly for the purpose of maintaining a social sense of superiority. In doing so, they maintain justification and reassertion of the abuse being warranted. This is necessary in the mind of the abuser to fortify and prevent doubt or guilt. The abuser, 32, will use language instituting a false sense of support and then diminish the worth and or contributions of the victim of abuse. This is seen in the instance of someone who offers opinions that are veiled with malicious intentions. An example, viewing the accomplishments of someone and offering criticisms designed now not for constructive development, but for control and to belittle. I saw your new book, but the way it was perceived makes it look like you are self-centered. The aim of this type of language is to diminish the self-worth of the victim. The types of abuse that are instituted by the evil inclination, and having provided 32 paths of understanding, in which collectively with another 18 or 50 for the 50 gates of understanding, into the psychological profile of the evil inclination and its methods of abuse, we will examine only a few others. I will list off but a few. First, self-abuse. This is a byproduct, for there are 7 byproducts of the abuse of the evil inclination, and 5 forms in which it manifests itself. Now, these 7 types of abuse are a result of the evil inclination itself. Some of them are operable. An example, these are types of abuses that are inflicted. The first, however, is self-abuse. This is a byproduct of suffering. The evil inclination brings about suffering into the world through all of the aforementioned aspects, and in doing so, creates a new type of abuse. And that is the type of abuse that is brought about to the victim, where the victim now engages in self-abuse. To begin, we will discuss the resulting self-abuse, which is a byproduct of abuse. Number 1, self-harm or injury. The victim, as a result of abuse, seeks to cause self-harm or injury. This is a response to being in a cycle of abuse that is not within their control. The resulting thoughts or actions of self-harm or injury being a subconscious expression of the victim having some sort of control in their abuse. The purpose is to make a visual response to their trauma or to retaliate against the abuser, having the gratification of inflicting the abuse by the victim, taking the abuse into their own hands. 2, suicide attempts. In addition to self-harm or injury, the victim of abuse may seek to commit suicide, which is an attempt to remove themselves from abuse. This is a response and an attempt to subconsciously or consciously retain some form of agency in life, because the victim of abuse views life under abuse as more bitter than death. 3, putting yourself down. Victims of abuse will often put themselves down in an attempt to rationalize the abuse they are experiencing, and may even go so far as to justify the abuse of the abuser in doing so. For the reality of such malice, the victim of abuse may not be able to rationalize. This also is an attempt at maintaining agency or the illusion of agency. 4, having friends who do not support you. Allowing others in your life who do not support you subconsciously allows your sense of self-worth to be diminished. This permits the idea that your pursuits or interests are not important or matter. What you believe in does matter. And to keep people in your life who do not support you is a form of self-abuse. Never belittle your sense of self-worth for the abusive behavioral patterns of others who do not care for you. 5, not celebrating your accomplishments. Achievements and accomplishments need to be acknowledged and valued by you more than anyone. It is not narcissistic or egoistic to celebrate accomplishments. At the completion of each Sepher, a celebration is held in celebration of the accomplishment. Not celebrating your accomplishments diminishes your own sense of self-worth. This is self-abuse, the idea of conforming to the social structures or guidelines of others who do not view your success as an accomplishment worth celebrating is self-abuse. 6, having friends who tear you down. Allowing others who actively diminish your sense of self-worth is self-abuse. Friends do not tear you down. There is a difference between criticism and constructive criticism. These are not your friends, they are your abusers. Number 7, thinking you don't deserve anything good. Everyone makes mistakes, and you are not defined by your mistakes. Do not think, because you made mistakes, that you do not deserve good things to happen to you in life. This is a form of self-abuse. Number 8, refusing to get counseling when needed. Allowing yourself to exist within extreme, emotionally volatile states of mind and or situations without seeking professional help is a form of self-abuse. Number 9, comparing yourself to others and feeling bad about yourself. Comparing yourself to others for the purpose of seeing them as superior to you is a form of self-abuse, because you are allowing your self-worth to be diminished. You matter, and there is not another you in existence. You cannot be replaced, and if you exist, you have a unique role to play that only you can fulfill. Number 10, drug, alcohol abuse. Abusing drugs or alcohol is self-abuse, as this actively causes harm to your health, emotional, and psychological well-being. 11, not taking care of yourself. Not taking care of yourself is neglect. The result is suffering and trauma, and this is self-abuse. Number 12, staying in a situation that you hate, whether it be a job, friendship, relationship, activity, group, or other. Allowing yourself to be in environments you hate causes emotional and psychological distress, and this is self-abuse. Number 13, overeating or undereating. Engaging in overeating or undereating is neglect of your personal health, and this is a type of self-abuse. Number 14, thinking that nobody loves you. This is a lie. There are people who love you, certainly in different capacities, but the idea that nobody loves you is a diminishment of your self-worth, and this is self-abuse. Number 15, punishing yourself for mistakes made. There is a difference between holding yourself accountable and living under the definition of a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes, and you are not defined by those mistakes. Seeking to define yourself by your mistakes diminishes your self-worth and robs you of change. This is self-abuse. Number 16, isolating yourself from others. We all need time to ourselves, but actively isolating yourself from everyone and engaging in self-deprecation, especially if the reason is depression, is self-abuse. 17, staying with someone who is abusing you. There is never an excuse for abuse. And if you are experiencing abuse in a relationship, friendship, or other, staying in that situation is self-abuse. People who love you do not abuse you. Friends do not abuse each other. Never sacrifice your self-worth by conforming to the abuse of others. 18, thinking that you are a failure. Everyone fails in the pursuit of goals worth achieving, but this never means you are a failure. Psychological abuse of the evil inclination. Our first type of abuse mentioned is psychological abuse, which proceeds with other forms of abuse and acts as a catalyst to the other forms of abuse. 1. Passive aggression. Passive aggression is a powerful form of psychological abuse because it abuses the victim while maintaining the illusion of innocence. This causes the victim to doubt themselves or question the motives of the abuser. If the abuser is confronted, they will deny the abuse and imply that the victim is crazy, diminishing the abuse they are inflicting while simultaneously obtaining victimhood, in addition to their abuse. These are the most dangerous types of psychological abuse, and are the traits of narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. Avoid anyone who engages in passive aggression. Number 2, threatening self-harm or suicide. Threatening self-harm or suicide is psychological abuse as it causes the victim to enter emotional distress and volatility. Number 3, blaming. Blaming other people for problems you create is a form of psychological abuse. It places unwarranted distress on the victim of the psychological abuse and causes mental and emotional distress. Number 4, justifying. Justifying abusive behavior by attempting to explain it away adds a layer of psychological abuse in addition to other forms of abuse being perpetrated. Number 5, making another person get their friends and associates approved by you. This is a form of control that manipulates the victim into conforming to the parameters set forth by the abuser and robs them of agency. Number 6, not allowing people to participate in activities they enjoy. Restricting others from the pursuit of happiness and enjoyment is psychological abuse. The world does not revolve around you, and seeking to dictate what others can and cannot do is psychological abuse. Number 7, diminishing what other people find enjoyment in. Diminishing the pursuits of happiness and enjoyment in others is controlling behavior that directly results in the diminishment of the perception of the victim's sense of happiness and enjoyment. This is psychological abuse. An example, someone shares something they find enjoyment in, and the response is to diminish the quality of life and worth of the victim. This is psychologically abusive. Number 8, excessive messages and or calls. The only function of this is to cause distress and is used only to control the victim's behavior to respond to your control. If it is not an immediate emergency, this is controlling, and the purpose is to cause distress, and this is psychological abuse. Number 9, forcing others to figure out what is wrong with you. Intentionally being vague or having others need to figure out what is wrong with you is manipulative and controlling behavior designed to cause mental anguish and distress. This is psychological abuse. Number 10, eavesdropping. Involving yourself in other people's private conversations and acting on those invasions of privacy and agency is psychological abuse. Number 11, gossip. Gossiping or partaking in the gossip of others causes mental anguish and distress when the victim becomes aware. This is psychological abuse. Number 12, stalking or following. Stalking or following someone is a controlling behavior that is designed to cause distress to the victim. This is psychological abuse. Number 13, monitoring electronic usage. Taking away agency from an individual is control. The only intent is to control the behavioral patterns of the victim, and this is a type of psychological abuse. Number 14, glaring or staring or intimidating. Glaring at someone with the intent of controlling their behavior is a type of psychological abuse. Number 15, demanding attention. Demanding the attention of friends or partners robs them of agency and is a controlling behavior designed to control the thought process of the victim. Number 16, threats of violence. Threatening someone or intimidating them is solely for the purpose of causing mental anguish and distress. And this is psychological abuse. Number 17, comparing your partner to others. This diminishes the victim's sense of self-worth and causes distress. This is an abuse tactic used by abusers. An example, my ex would do, fill in the blank. Or, I wish you could be like, fill in the blank. These are controlling behaviors that do not show love of the actual individual, but seeks to mold, control, and diminish the victim into psychological submission. This is psychological abuse. People do not need to live up to the expectations of your controlling tendencies. 18. Holding expectations. Expecting people to live up to parameters and ideals you have self-conceived and becoming upset when they do not is psychological abuse. Number 19, having needs. Having others live according to the controlling behavior of needs is psychological abuse. I need you to do this. I have these needs. The emotional abuse of the evil inclination. Number 1, calling someone names. Calling a person a name that they do not wish to be called by is a type of emotional abuse, as its only purpose is to diminish the self-worth of the individual and conforms them to the parameters and labels of the abuser. Number 2, putting another person down. Belittling others diminishes the self-worth of another human being, and this is emotional abuse. Number 3, screaming. Screaming at another person as a form of communication is solely for the purpose of diminishing the viewpoints of the victim and force the viewpoint of the perpetrator. This causes emotional distress and is emotional abuse. Number 4, shaming. Shaming another person causes emotional distress, and this is a form of emotional abuse. Number 5, ignoring. Ignoring another person intentionally is a form of passive aggression designed to cause distress. This is emotional abuse. Number 6, telling another they will fail. Diminishing the success or pursuits of success by others is a control tactic to diminish their value to match your own persona's biased sense of worth. This is emotional abuse. Number 7, talking bad about friends. Speaking ill about friends or family members of others simply because you have a personal bias is designed only to diminish the quality of life of others, and this is emotional abuse. Number 8, Telling others about private matters. The intention is to draw others into shaming the victim and label them by their perceived wrongdoing. This is emotional abuse. Number 9, using guilt to get what you want. Manipulating others by making them feel guilty into doing something you want is emotional abuse. Number 10, telling someone they cannot live without you. They lived without you before they met you, and certainly will after. If you resort to this behavior, the victim is certainly better without your emotional abuse. Number 11, gaslighting. Gaslighting another person is emotional abuse. Number 12, refusing to take accountability for wrongdoing. Refusing to acknowledge wrongdoing or only looking at the wrongdoing of others but not taking personal accountability diminishes the suffering of the victim and is emotional abuse. Number 13, making fun of looks. Making fun of the appearance of another because they do not conform to your ideals of perception is emotional abuse. Number 14, invalidating. Invalidating the suffering of others that you have perpetrated is emotional abuse. Number 15, telling embarrassing stories about others. The purpose of this is to shame or humiliate the victim, and this is a form of emotional abuse. Number 16, telling someone they are not good enough. Holding others to preconceived expectations is a form of emotional abuse, especially in relationships. Number 17, being glad they failed. Rejoicing in the failures of others is a form of emotional abuse. Number 18, emotional volatility. Being emotionally volatile with friends and relationships is a form of emotional abuse. Number 19, talking or communicating needs. There is a difference between having ideals and communicating needs. The term need is a controlling, self-absorbed, abusive behavior designed to control the behavior of the victim into conforming to the series of needs and denies agency. This is emotional abuse. Now, the Sepher continues on in this particular gate to clarify and list 5 other types of abuse. But for the sake of today's lesson, I will end it on those notes. Throughout the course of today's lesson, we have gone through the secrets of grafting, the secrets of the Sephirot, the letters, the names, the worlds, and how one ascends through the chariot, the secret of the world of Y.I.R.A.H, its parameters, the aspects of its constructs, the secret of the chariot, the forms, how it produces the good and evil inclination, how that in turn forms the collective sum of experiences, which are the persona, the 7-headed serpent, into great depth on the intricacies of the influences of collective sums of experiences as types of light that enter into the heart to ascend and become words, which form various heavens or hells, by which the serpent flies in the midst of. For the persona is formed from various concepts that were created from various words, which were created from various influences that arose from the heart. And now we have entered in through the gate of righteousness and explained how suffering comes into the world as a byproduct of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. By joining yourself with that persona, with that sum of experience, with good and bad, with the evil inclination, and how not only does the evil inclination cause abuse to others, which is recognition of what a person who is ruled by the evil inclination institutes, but moreover, what suffering is brought into the world and the abuses that are had on behalf of the victims that are subjected to people who are ruled by their evil inclination. For those of you that would like to learn more and to know more mysteries of the Torah, or more esoteric keys behind the things that were presented today, regarding the two Sephers, Likkutei Yirah and Tikkunei Yirah, I teach privately on Skool. It's skool.com/Y.I.R.A.H, Y.I.R.A.H. You guys can find a link to that in my TikTok bio. I'd like to thank you all for joining me for a very deep and profound lesson regarding the secrets of the chariot. And I hope that each of you were able to take away something from this, a tikkun to the midah. And as David HaMelech said, open my eyes and I may behold the wonders of your Torah. Amen, everybody. Shalom and Sema.